So, as you'll see from my job title, I am the Head of Research Sustainability at UCL, and I've been in this role for about 18 months now. And really, when you look back over my career, I'm an example of how nothing in your career ever goes to waste. So I did my degree at Bradford University in the mid-90s, and then I did a PhD at King's. Moved to America and did a postdoc for a year out there in the same subject that I'd done my PhD in, which was blindness in the elderly. And then I came back to the UK and I did 5 years of postdoc research at Imperial, and I changed fields. I started working on tuberculosis then. And it became really clear during those 5 years that I was not cut out for research. I didn't like writing grants and I didn't like writing papers, and that's kind of crucial for a researcher, really. So I took a year off and went travelling around the world, and it was amazing. But there's one bit that always sticks with me from that trip, and I was in Zanzibar, and it's the most beautiful island. But there was a waterway that was completely clogged up with plastic bottles. Now, I did this in 2007, 2008, so it's almost 20 years ago. But that image just stuck with me of like all of that waste in that beautiful location. But anyway, I came back to the UK and decided to stay working in universities, and I moved into the professional services side of them. And so I started working initially just in administration and teaching, and then I decided to bring together the teaching and the research, and I became a research manager. And then I moved on to do project management and partnership management. And so I used to work on healthcare projects between UCL and external partners. And then after a particularly tough year acting up into my boss's job, I thought it's time for another year off. And so I took another year off and I went travelling around Eastern Europe and South America. And in South America, I did some really long bus journeys, and I could not get over the amount of plastic waste that there was along the side of the roads. It was just everywhere. And one journey I did was almost 2,000 kilometres. And for the time that I was awake, because it was an overnight trip, I'm certain that I didn't pass more than 10 metres at any point that was free of rubbish. And I just thought, this is ridiculous. It's nowhere near as bad as this in the UK. And then I came home and realised, actually, it's just as bad over here too. I went back into the partnership management, but then I started working more on projects that had sustainability focus in them. And I did a lot of work with UCL Partners, which is an organisation that supports the transition of discoveries in universities into treatments in hospitals. But one of the things that they also are interested in is how we decarbonise the NHS. And so working on those projects, I really managed to get involved a lot with sustainability projects through that. And then I decided that I really wanted to transition into a career focused on sustainability. So I did the Terradu Learning for Action course, which you'll know well, and that was transformational for me. And then, say about 18 months ago, the role of a secondment into Sustainable Research Manager at UCL came up, and I took that on. And really, that role is all about supporting research sustainability in UCL, mainly in laboratories because they are the bigger users of energy, but across all the research types that we do at UCL. And so I now am responsible for a programme that supports researchers to reduce the environmental impact of their work, the LEAF programme. When I started in the job, we had about 90 institutions that license it from UCL. We're now up at around about 150. There are various reasons in the sector as to why that's happened. But really my job now is to support researchers to reduce the environmental impact of their work. And so it really feels like I've come a full circle because I'm back in labs again, which I was in 20 odd years ago, like working with researchers to reduce what they're doing. We never really considered sustainability when I worked in the lab. I dread to think how many resources that I wasted that I didn't need to. And so now I'm working to help other researchers not make the same mistakes that I did. So to put it in context, research in healthcare is really carbon intensive. So the NHS is thought to be around about 4 to 5% of the UK's emissions. Labs usually use anywhere between 3 and 10 times the amount of energy the equivalent office space uses. And so really what we encourage researchers to do is really consider what it is that they're doing in the lab, why they're doing it and how they're doing it. And really for us, a lot of this, what we do in the UK that can translate to the South Asian regions is we think about safety first. not necessarily to sustainability. We always consider safety and sustainability to be the same things, but on different timescales. And so really, in the UK, research is really highly regulated. There are very strict rules around the way that you manage your waste and what you do. And so I think a lot of what can be done is actually consider the safety of what you're doing first. So to give you an example there, in laboratories that are using biological samples, they'll have to be disposed of through hazardous waste routes. So this means that they get incinerated at high temperatures and it costs an awful lot of money to do that. So when people are putting waste in their general waste bin, for us it costs us around £200 a tonne to get rid of that. When it gets incinerated, it's low temperature incineration, generates about 160 kilograms of carbon dioxide. And we can recover energy from that, so we get about 800 kilowatt hours back per tonne of waste. When researchers put waste that doesn't have to be treated as hazardous waste in the hazardous waste bin and increase the amount there, it costs us about £1,000 a tonne to get rid of hazardous waste, so it's way more expensive. It also produces about 6 times as much carbon dioxide, so it's roughly 960 kilograms of carbon dioxide per tonne. And the process that we use for UCL, and this isn't the same everywhere, we can't recover any energy from it. So really it's about considering the safety, because it's putting your stuff in the right bin according to how hazardous it is, that then has the sustainability knock-on benefits that go with it. The other thing that I think that we don't do so well here that is done a lot better in South Asia is having shared facilities. It's really common for every researcher to want to have every bit of equipment that they can use, but they don't need it and they won't be using it all the time. So develop shared facilities, have multiple labs using the same equipment, and then you'll get far more efficient usage of your equipment. You don't have to buy as much, you're reducing your Scope 3 emissions that go with that, but also you're enabling opportunities for collaboration and researchers to work together in those facilities. I guess the final thing that I would say with that is that whilst we can both learn from each other, both in the global north and South Asia, we do have to realise that the different areas have different challenges. And so sometimes some of the solutions that we put in place in the UK won't work in South Asia and vice versa. But there will be opportunities to learn from each other, regardless of where we go and what solution we put in place. It's the knowledge. So it's the knowledge that they bring with them. So I am a member of my team, who I will fully admit that I've spoken to quite a lot before I came on this panel, is from Pakistan. And it's really interesting talking to her about the way that research is done in labs in Pakistan, well, in the particular university that she worked with, and learning about the different ways that people do things. One of the things that we're trying to do with LEAF is learn actually how we change it for people that are doing research in low middle income countries. And actually we have so much to learn because we're so wasteful in the UK. But actually where people have fewer resources, they are far more resourceful. And so it's really common in labs in the UK to use lots of single-use plastic. Whereas in countries that have fewer resources, they're not able to buy as much, so they may wash their plastic. They may use glass and use that and autoclave it rather than keep using single-use plastics all the time. And so I think really it's sort of understanding the different environments. Is a very different funding environment in the UK to what it is in South Asia. So, you know, we get a lot of money from government, from industry, from charitable funders, but charities have a completely different focus in developing countries than they do, in the UK. A lot of our funders are focused on the research for the diseases, whereas in Pakistan or India, a lot of the charities are focused on the people with the diseases. And so the research isn't necessarily the same. And so one of the things I would say, like I was saying, a lot of the resources that are used in labs in South Asia, they will be washed and they will be reused. One of the reasons that a lot of our researchers don't do it is because they really fear that there's going to be contamination of the samples and there'll be some problems with the research. But we trust the research papers that come out of South Asia in universities. So if we trust those papers because they've been peer reviewed, they have been subject to scrutiny, why can't we do the same things over here? Why can't we learn the different ways that we can do that? But I think that what the benefit we also have is the fact that people that have come over from South Asia, they've still got their contacts over there. And so there are lots of things that they'll be doing in universities or research institutes in the UK that they can share with people back home. You know, the protocols that are being put in place, the risk assessments that are being put in place. You use a toxic chemical here, it's exactly the same regardless of where you use it. You might have some local variations in the risk assessment, but the basics of how you operate safely with that chemical will be the same regardless of the environment that you're using it in. And this is where I think, you know, this is one of the benefits that came out of the pandemic, is that we're so much more used to having virtual meetings. And, you know, so there are so many opportunities to collaborate. You might not have a formal collaboration with a grant or something like that, but that doesn't mean to say that you can't have meetings between, you know, sort of universities in South Asia, UK and, you know, other universities. There are lots of opportunities for us to work together, but that key is having that connection from people that have come from South Asia to the UK but are prepared to maintain their connections back home. And if they transition back, you know, after being here, maintain the connections here and keep building up the community and build that critical mass of people that can work together. So, sadly, climate change is affecting South Asia far more quickly and far more severely. And I'm not here for the ethics of this, but this is a real opportunity for shared learning. And I think this is really crucial because we know in the UK that heat has a real impact on health. We know that from the heat waves that we've been having, we see increase in excess deaths. We know from research that we do at UCL that people with epilepsy suffer more seizures when the temperature rises. And there's quite a lot of research that's going on in South Asia around women in childbirth and the effects of heat on childbirth. Unfortunately, the health effects are going to be experienced in South Asia more earlier than we'll experience them here. And so this is where we have a real opportunity to support research in those areas to understand what the solutions are, what are the treatments that are needed, you know, in South Asia to support people that are suffering from the health issues associated with climate change. And then that also helps us to know what to do down the line, you know, because we're going to get there. You know, it may take us longer, but it's going to happen. And so there's a real opportunity to learn the problems that will be faced in South Asia, support the solutions to be put in place there, and then we also have that learning that's brought here. But the key thing that we have to do, and this is something that is really starting to be recognised in the UK now. So about 3 weeks after I started my job, we had the Concordat on the environmental sustainability of research and innovation practice come out in the UK. This was an absolutely transformational Concordat for us. And it's about getting leadership, the researchers and the funding bodies to all work together to make sure that we make research and innovation practice more sustainable. And one of the things that Concordat expects researchers to do is not be the people that keep travelling to another location to do the research. It's about building that capacity in that location itself. And so I think we have lots of opportunities. We can generate partnerships, informal ones. We can have more formal ones by putting in place joint grants where we can be working together. There are PhD programs that could be developed where you could have people undertaking their PhDs in South Asia. They could come to the UK to work too, but you can be building those researchers of the future. So you can build that critical mass. And then you can have just informal groupings. If somebody has travelled over to the UK to do a PhD, say they maintain their connections back home as well and do that. But the key thing is we need to target the solutions for healthcare for the people that are going to be experiencing the effects of climate change first. We don't focus on necessarily, you know, in countries where it's going to take longer to do that. And by that, we'll be more innovative in the solutions that we put in place, and we'll be sort of generating the knowledge that will be needed all around the world, but targeting it where it really needs to be, you know, put in place initially.